Let's take a look-see. Turn it around. Click. There we go. Okay, there's down. Oh, and there's the regular. There's always the regulars that I see here. I mean, this woman right here with the heavy jacket is a regular. I see her every Saturday. And lots of surfers today. The waves are really actually sweet. They don't look so good right now, but they are sweet. These people here are regulars too. I see them a lot. And there's a guy over there taking photos. And another person out there sweeping with his minesweeper or whatever. And then the pier down there. It's a nice day. Let's see, there we go. All right. Well, it's time to read again from Going Alone. We're going to read, I'm going to read, the chapter titled, The Path of Wildness. It's easy to find. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. Yes, so be it. Let me set this down here. Okay, I'm doing a little better. I've been doing some stretching exercises that my doctor recommended, and it's helping my back a little bit. Oof. And I will remember today to not wander too far from the camera. Last week, I wandered way down by the water, and it got out of range of my microphone, and it all cut out. I found out later, so I know what the range is roughly now. It's a bit chilly, but it's going to be hot later. Yesterday I was out swimming, just right out there, and the waves were really tossing and turning and knocking me all around. And I actually got myself into a bit of trouble. Got caught in a little rip current. Never really thought that rip currents would be that bad a deal. I've been in rip currents many times all my life. Brought my swimsuit just in case. But it got me. I got pounded bad yesterday. That was a tough experience. A little bit scary. I'm learning my lessons. I'm no young man anymore. Okay, let's go ahead and read from the chapter in Going Alone. We're going to read from the chapter called The Path of Wildness, which is the first chapter that was written in the book, although it's certainly not the first chapter in the book. I started writing this chapter as an essay. Really, it was started off as an email. Is that right? The Anxiety Hike, is that the Path of Wildness? Is that next? Yeah, there it is. It started off as an email. I was living in Japan doing my adventure stuff as softypapa, and I would get email from people saying, "How did you do it? How did you get to Japan and have this adventure? I want to do something like that as well." And I would write a response saying, "Well, first you gotta decide you're gonna go, and then you gotta pick a date, and then you gotta buy a ticket, and just you go, and et cetera, right? And then not expect it to be the answer to all your questions, right? Don't expect that happiness will come or that satisfaction will come of changing your circumstance. That's another challenge altogether." And I found that I was writing that same letter over and over every month to various people who were writing to me. So I finally wrote it down as a template, kind of a email. I took one that I wrote, took that apart, made a document out of that, and then when people would write to me, I would take a copy and paste that in and just adjust it a little bit, like a form letter, and then send that to people as response. And then I realized it was changing over time. It was adjusting, and it was becoming more verbose and more poetic in its license and its content. And after a while, it became an essay that I called The Path of Wildness, which I came back to America with. This book, I didn't come back with Going Alone. I came back with The Path of Wildness, which was the yield of my decade, my however many years I was in Japan. What was it? 11 years that I was in Japan for that time. Really, that whole episode of going to Japan with $1 million and losing it all and everything that happened really came distilled out down to the one little thing, which was the essay, The Path of Wildness, which I came back to America with alone, with an essay. And I didn't give it any thought. I just stuffed it aside in the computer, and it sat there. And then I began the difficult trudge of trying to build my family up here in the United States and get on our feet in this impossible place of Southern California. I still cannot believe that we pulled it off, and I can't believe the chutzpah that Yumiko and I had in attempting to do this. from the circumstance of failure and loss that we had come from in Japan. I mean, I had failed just so utterly and miserably at everything. I mean, I had so many advantages and I lost everything. And to think that I could come back and succeed here after all of that, what nerve. But I did. And I came back, and I drugged my family with me and took the whole risk of the whole thing and everything. And I had that little essay, The Path of Wildness. And I started to go. I had 14 months alone, and I started to, before my family joined me, my wife and daughter. So I got that motorcycle, and I started to go into the desert and adventuring into the desert. And something woke up in me. The muse came back. The muse that had talked to me in the mountains of Japan came back out there in the desert, and came back and haunted me here in the city, and drew me back deeper into the desert, causing me to search for things until I eventually found Siberia Ghost Town, and eventually made my trek off into the deep water, what I discovered and named as the deep water wilderness, and the Black Mountain, the Sandman's Bed, and the much further and much more distant place I've never reached, which is Mount Wildness. And I realized then that the nugget that I had created, the start that I had begun in Japan with the Path of Wildness, was the start of something bigger. The Path of Wildness was what led to the Great Life Adventure, which became the story of going alone. This book is 2 parts. It's one part going away, and it's another part coming back. And in the middle, between those two, is the Great Revelation, that I'll leave you to read the book to understand what the Great Revelation was. And so the Path of Wildness then is about midway through, just a little more on the front side, and it's the turning point after the anxiety hike. The anxiety hike was the place where I had the great revelation, right? The great unseen. And then the Path of Wildness I wrote, I realized after having the anxiety hike and a few months of distilling that hike into a story, that I could take the Path of Wildness essay from Japan, what happens is I had the Path of Wildness. If I told the story of the anxiety hike and paired that with the Path of Wildness, I began to have something, and then I began to build the chapters out from there. So it really started with that one chapter in the middle, essay in the middle, added on the anxiety hike, and then began adding other things. Going Alone chapter, the Stoic Poetry chapter, My Muse is a Corpse. I think My Muse is a Corpse came next after. So it would have been the Path of Wildness would have been the first part. I believe My Muse is a Corpse was the second part, and then the anxiety hike, which I had the anxiety hike in mind all along. I just needed to spin up the energy to do it, and then I put that in, and then I filled out all the rest, Going Alone, Stoic Poetry, introduction, all that stuff, filled it out, and then I had a book, and I was like, where did you come from? Well, let's go ahead and read it, shall we? So, the Path of Wildness, and you can see that it has actually an illustration of the Path of Wildness that my daughter drew for me after I took her out to Siberia and showed her this truly existing path from nowhere to nowhere that exists out there by Siberia Ghost Town. The Path of Wildness, mustering the courage to live. And then a quote. Persons who have wandered or been expelled out of the common track of things, even were it for a better system, desire nothing so much as to be led back. They shiver in their loneliness, be it on a mountaintop or in a dungeon. Nathaniel Hawthorne. Read no further than the 2 Years Before the Mask by Dana to hear that sentiment at the very concluding second to last chapter. Here we go. This chapter was originally composed in Japan, and before I began going alone in earnest. I wrote The Path of Wildness in response to the many young people who contacted me during my time as a Japan-based YouTube content creator. Young people dreaming of Japan, yet unable to muster the courage or resources to make their dream real, and writing to ask me how this trick was done and what advice I could offer to help them get away from whatever unsatisfactory life they were living. I still get those emails. Not as much, though. I responded with The Path of Wildness, which is a metaphor for courage and action, and a reminder of the risk of waiting too long, and a challenge and a method of getting unstuck. Now then, the chapter is broken into sections. Okay, the first section here is called The Path of Wildness. As I near 50, I am becoming increasingly aware that my situation is like a man holding his breath in a sealed container of water, with less than a minute of consciousness remaining. Now is the time to scratch something meaningful on the wall, to share what I have seen and learned. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. That short little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines really was the start of everything. Loud car. I remember writing those lines. I was hiking up in the mountains in Japan, and they kind of came to me. And I'll read it again, because I think, to me, it buttons hole everything. I mean, the whole book distills down into those 5 lines, in fact. The path of wildness is easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, in the direction of our first inclination. The path of wildness is an answer and response to a prescribed way of life, which may leave some individuals with a sense that their living is little more than a series of predetermined step-like episodes between birth and death. The stages of living between these events, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, parenthood, and senior, are themselves natural and in accord with the needs of the species and most individuals. Many find satisfaction in living this course, and to these individuals I have little to say. Others, though, long for something more, something innate, genetic, and seemingly calling. Adventure and change can give a degree of satisfaction and relief, yet even these may seem too tame, and the results often only temporary. To those who feel drawn to something beyond the entertainment and stimulation of senses, I offer a walk along the path of wildness. Don't bother penciling the event into your schedule, preparing a pack with goodies and supplies, or even inviting a friend along, for this experience is along the course of your first inclination, and you must surely always go alone. Next section. The problem: life has no apparent meaning. So remember, I was writing this as an email response to people. So first I was saying, as I get to this age, here's the reflection that I have, and now here's the problem that I think you face. And I'm trying to suggest to people that coming to Japan in that case, was not going to be the answer to the question. There's a deeper problem. So that being the lack of apparent meaning. Here we go. My adventure videos on YouTube have produced a steady stream of email from people who tell me about the dreams they cannot quite bring themselves to live, and their fear of being alone, and feeling their lives do not matter. However, nobody ever says it that way, and instead they cloak these worries as simple life anxieties, or blame their trepidation and inaction on various personal or familial infirmities and challenges. I can't tell you how many times I've heard those stories from people. I can't possibly be happy. I can't possibly have an adventure. This, that, and the other thing. I mean, I'm not saying those things aren't true. Still, often they're excuses. They do this to convince themselves these simple facts are the true cause of their churning worry and hesitation. They attempt to avoid a deeper fear, a hidden threat which is more real and threatening to a quality life than any surface-level anxiety. It is a demon of sorts, lurking in the shadows of conscious thought, peeking with knowing eyes in the direction of our mortality, pointing a crooked finger at the hazy terminal point of our life, while offering a suggestive grin that nothing will be found beyond. This thought, along with the weighty implication it bears that life is without intrinsic meaning, appears to be the more real and tactile cause of the concern I sometimes read in the words of those who write to me. I never point this out, though, as I suspect they prefer I go along with their bluff and humor them with a response in keeping with their stated concern. Reality, after all, can be a fearful thing to face. However, I will now attempt a more honest answer, reflective of my own life experience and sincere interactions with others. By gosh, that's what I wanted to do all along when all those people would write to me, was to give them the more honest response. And I rarely ever did. Maybe I hinted at it from time to time, but in this case, I will give it because it's in the book. And I got to write it. So this is not part of the email response template that I would send to people. This is my addition above and beyond. This light and living we now know offers a stark contrast to the nothingness we intuitively sense existed before our birth, and the same nothingness we fear a return to after life is done. In fact, this fear is far worse than a return to nothingness, as we are each capable of holding a vision of hell in our minds more terrible and real than the worst damnation preached from any austere and authoritative pulpit. This greater terror is our sense that the universe can get along without us, that our life and living are of little real consequence in any way, and that our best efforts will account for little beyond the temporary comfort given to the handful of individuals we share and interact with before death takes us away utterly, permanently, and forever. This is the real terror so many struggle to avoid, which reason and honest inquiry coldly suggest as true. An abject fear of ultimate insignificance and meaninglessness in the face of the curious fact of temporary life in an otherwise lifeless universe. I do not understand why the thought of death, real death, absolute death, with no chance of recovery, salvation, or continuation, is more tolerable to some than others. However, I suspect this acceptance may relate to some level of comfort and familiarity with being alone. Not that anyone will be alone after death, as even the concept of alone then would be wishful thinking. Nevertheless, during life, if we can abide our own company for extended periods of time, then the thought of being without others, or ourselves even after death, may somehow become more palpable and acceptable, a more familiar, intangible something and somewhere, less feared as accepted, or perhaps resigned to. To such a person, a life without absolute meaning may be acceptable. Days, months, and years of striving to no absolute end, all right, and nothing to fear. To such an individual, the journey itself becomes its own purpose, the momentary satisfaction and good feelings connected with virtue their own worthy end, where virtue is defined simply as the pursuit of objective well-being for ourselves and others. Death then offers no transition, but is simply a simple final stop, a period and ending of effort and of striving and of reflection towards understanding, which yields nothing more than transitory and ultimately meaningless gain to ourselves and those to follow. But is this a bad thing? If yes, then it's understandable that many protest, recoil, and fly from such thoughts. But if no, then our breathing can relax as we measure each inhalation as one of the few we get, and use the fuel of this living to move our body and activate our brain in such a way as to create our own meaning in these passing moments, and to pursue objective goodness in the willful expression of perceived best ends. That's in a nutshell the message I was striving to convey in my seemingly countless email to young people writing to ask my counsel on next steps. Don't know that it ever came across. I still don't know that it comes across. Although I will tell you that now, at age 59, the yield is real. I mean, pursuing that as an objective, having a less fearful attitude and engagement with life can yield that better end that I'm basically living the fruits of now. And it's a very good thing, if I do say so myself. It's a very good way to live. It's a good yield and end. So, excuse me, let me sneeze. Pardon me. So, what words can I say to those who write to me asking my thoughts regarding their worldly dilemmas, when my suspicion tells me their real concern is actually a fear of their own unimportance and the utter finality of death? In most cases, I will engage their most direct questions and give the best answer and suggestion I can, given my untrained and uncredentialed qualifications. I wish, though, that I could speak to them more plainly and tell them that their deeper fears are real, and then ask them to explain their terror for my own benefit, and then hear my claims, which I hope may benefit them. Perhaps then we could both gain from a more honest and humane inquiry and inquisition into facts than any civilized, restrained, or judicial discourse could provide. For my part, I am now prepared to lay my humble case before any who may care to hear. So that's my preamble complete. Let's lay forth my case. Here we go. This next section is called Opportunity, Available Light. Mind is an instantiation of consciousness, formed of energy, organized within the brain along pathways designed of genetics and molded through the unique living of each individual. There is no soul in the sense of anything transcendental or eternal. The fact that our materials and energy are everlasting, having been used by others before us and destined for reuse by the yet unborn, is testament to the fact that our person is temporary and ephemeral. We are, individually and collectively, a brief, dim, and fast-fading spark and flash of material and energy in the darkening night of the universe. In this fact, we discover both our dilemma and great potential. The challenge being to remain upright in the face of our utter fleeting insignificance, while engaging whatever meek will we can muster towards observation, reflection, and art, while the light and sound of the universe wash across our senses. Without apparent purpose, we are left to decide for ourselves whatever meaning or significance should guide our days and actions. This is the great dilemma of the individual, which demands forthright acceptance of the facts of the observable universe and withholds any complete explanation or guidance. You must stand alone. You must recognize your solitude. You must hold yourself upright despite unstable footing and the approach of death. You must withstand the awful winds growing stronger and control your trembling hands while strange howling emanates from the wilder places and no trail or trodden path indicates the direction of safety. From here, if you can quiet the heart and gain control of your senses, overcome and learn to tolerate feelings of isolation, loneliness, and fear, then you will be prepared to make your own one-way path through the wild, to step where the weeds are tangled and small biting creatures lurk with hairy legs, slicing jaws, and venomous sting. This is your path to follow, a truly dangerous and terrifying route none has ever trod or may ever again follow. The light is faint now and growing fainter as the evening and night of your days grows near. Follow the dusk and note the sights. Speak of what you see. Describe your world in writing or painting or photography or spoken word. Poetry especially is a natural and well-suited vehicle to capture this ever-declining experience. Walk your path and observe, and then tell the story of your own brief available light. That's the true thing that I wish I could say to all of those people over and over again that were writing to me all those years. I never had the courage to say it, or maybe I was lacking the eloquence at the time, and I think I saw a typo. Hold on. I think I wrote quit instead of quiet. Well, hold on. If you can quiet. No, that's okay. Quiet. Good. If I've edited this book so many countless times that it's rare that I find typos anymore. Okay, so there I lay for the proposition. Now, the next part is health and eating well. And a quote, "Wisdom is an organized life." Immanuel Kant. Your good philosophy depends upon your body, which relies upon your health, which rests upon the choices you make as to exercise and what you eat and drink. Devote some time early in life to an understanding of what makes good bodies, and then take care of yourself accordingly. What follows is a summary of my own imperfect exercise and diet solutions. Now, note, I've changed this a lot since I first wrote this, but I won't adjust it to keep up. My body has changed, my opportunities have changed. I don't have access to a pool, but I do come here and swim almost every day. But it's not quite the same. I exercise daily. However, my exercise routine is light, easy, and requires little time. My base workout is a 15-minute pool swim. My swimming style is very low impact. I do a gentle backstroke for 5 laps, and another 5 laps backwards breaststroke, alternating these two styles between each lap. The backwards breaststroke is something a swim instructor taught me and involves simply resting face up on the water like you would do with a conventional backstroke, though instead of reaching back over your head to do a reverse crawl, simply lift your arms to your sides while keeping your arms in the water before then stretching out your arms to give a nice stroke until your hands are again at your waist and your arms parallel to your body. This stroke takes a little practice, but when you have got it down, the process is easy. This swim is low impact and very relaxing, and you can look up at the sky while gliding gently through the water. I especially enjoy this swim in the evening at sundown, when I can watch the first stars twinkle into view as the azure Southern California sky fades to black. While enjoying this backwards breaststroke, just beware you do not bang your head on the far end of the pool as your mind floats off with the clouds, as I've done many times. As mentioned, my swim is my base exercise, and I do this every day. However, I also enjoy walking to provide a lower body workout. That's what I do mostly. To this end, I typically walk between 2 and 4 miles daily. Now it's about 2 to 3 miles. Either spread out over several small walks, like a fast mile during my breaks at work, or one very long walk at the start or end of the day. Now I do one walk at lunchtime with my wife and another walk again with my wife after work is complete. If for whatever reason I need to skip some exercise, it will be my walk, as the swims are not optional and only can be missed for reasons such as illness or lack of access to a pool. Rain or cold weather are no good reasons not to swim. Now, if I had access to a pool, I would continue swimming every day as I did then. Kurt's imperfect diet, but much better than what I was doing before. So here's how I ate back when I wrote this part of the book. It's changed a lot. I'll summarize how I've changed it after I'm done. 5 a.m., wake up and drink a glass of water. 5:15 a.m., shave, shower, and then drink, quotation marks, a blended smoothie made of kale, spinach, broccoli, carrot, beet. Note, I blend 4 glasses of this mixture ahead of time, which I keep in the fridge. I do not add anything to the smoothie other than the above ingredients and a little water or lime or lemon juice to help get the blending started. 5:30 a.m., single large fried egg with a slice of buttered whole wheat toast, which I share with the dog while watching the news on TV. 8 a.m., large mixed salad, same ingredients used in the smoothie, but with 2 handfuls of nuts in dried berry trail mix. I sometimes use lemon juice for dressing. 11:30 a.m., bowl of homemade chili with a slice of whole wheat bread. I make a huge vat of chili every other Sunday, still do, which I then portion out during the weeks to follow. The chili consists simply of a variety of beans and lots of finely chopped veggies. I season with a tablespoon of cumin and another tablespoon of chili powder. 3 p.m., small bowl of lightly salted popped popcorn. Why did I have to say popped? Who's going to eat non-pop popcorn? As a midday snack. I pop a week's worth of popcorn on Sunday night. Yeah, I used to do that, which I then store in my cubicle at work. An alternative to the popcorn is a few slices of unsulfured and unsweetened dried mango. Over time, the mango has almost come to replace the popcorn. 6 p.m., enjoy another smoothie, same as above. 8 p.m., prepare and enjoy a healthy dinner. I am lucky as my wife is an excellent cook, and she makes outstanding Japanese meals for our dinner. I eat as much as I like of whatever she makes, which is always good and healthy and satisfies whatever want of gluttony may linger at the end of the day. So how have I changed this over time? It's different now. Instead of getting up at 5 a.m., I get up at 4 a.m. I do a whole bunch of things between about 4 and 5:30 a.m., personal tasks that I endeavor to do, studying that I do, and then I feed the dog breakfast at that time, and I make myself a small bowl of oatmeal with five little eating spoonfuls of scoops of oatmeal. It's not a lot, and then I have a couple of vitamins. I have two codfish oil tablets, vitamin B12, vitamin C tablet, and then there's a calcium magnesium tablet. And then I'm almost 60. I have my prescribed medicines from my doctor, and I take those, one for my heart and my cholesterol, and another one for my pain and inflammation all over the body. So I have those at breakfast with the dogs. Then I typically don't eat anything until lunchtime when I have that big vat. I make that big vat of chili every 2 weeks, and it's changed a lot. I still use cumin and chili seasoning, but it's mixed with all kinds of stuff. Incredibly healthy. It's really good. And I have a bowl of that with a piece of bread, toast that I toast, and I share that with the dogs, the bread that is. And then I don't have anything typically until dinner time. Sometimes if I'm hungry, I'll have a little scooping bowl of unsalted pistachios and almonds that Yumiko and I keep out by the coffee area. Remember, we work from home now, so I'm no longer have to worry about taking things to work. So Yumiko and I both like those nuts, and I'll nibble those nuts. And then at dinner time, I pour myself, while Yumiko's making dinner, we have 2 walks. We have a good walk around the block at lunchtime together with the dogs, and then a long walk after work together. And then while Yumiko's cooking dinner, I usually go outside and sit in the yard with my guitar, and I pour myself a generous glass of wine. I only allow myself 1 glass a night. And I sit out there and I sip the wine while watching the sun go down and strumming my guitar with the dogs. When Yumiko calls me into dinner, which she makes these Japanese meals, I allow myself to eat as much as I want with that. It's like my great indulgence of every day, and it's so good and so healthy, and I really enjoy it. And then as I'm cleaning up the dishes, I typically have a bowl, probably a little larger than I should, of yogurt with a few blueberries in it, and that's it for me. And then I'm going to bed. I do my shower before dinner, and then I brush my teeth and I'm off to bed. That's the new routine. Let's continue. This menu is my own and reflects my limited sensibilities regarding taste. I am sure that someone more adept in the kitchen might find better and more satisfying alternatives. Of key importance here is the absence of processed foods, sugary drinks, or excessive sweets of any sort. I still don't do any of that. I do allow myself an occasional fast food meal with my family. I don't even do that anymore. Although Yumiko and I did have Del Taco last weekend. That was like the first time we'd done that in like 2 years. Yumiko just felt a craving. And an infrequent indulgence in salty snacks such as chips. No, not anymore. Or sweet desserts like a cookie or a piece of candy once in a while. Popcorn at the movies is a must. We don't go to the movies anymore. But if we do, we get it. As well as a few other simple and periodic indulgences which help to give my life spice and interest without taking away too much from my efforts at eating well. As for drinks, I limit my intake of coffee to no more than 2 cups a day. That's about right. 3 if I'm writing. Rarely. 2 cups is about it. Sometimes just 1. And I try to avoid fruit juice, too much sugar, and sodas. Absolutely. I never have any fruit juice or soda. The only time I would have fruit juice is if Yumiko and I are at a hotel somewhere and there's a morning buffet and they've got like orange juice or grapefruit juice. Well, I can't eat grapefruit juice anymore because of my medicine. But I don't even do those. And no sodas, ever. Well, no, that's not entirely true. I'll have a soda if I need a hit of caffeine and sugar to keep me awake when I'm driving, and I can't have coffee. I'll have a soda in that case. It's really rare. I've had maybe 3 sodas in the last 3 years. A beer or glass of wine are fine in the evening, though just 1, though these seem to hold less appeal for me with each passing year. Yeah, it's distilled down. I used to have like 2 cans of beer, and then I used to have like a big thing of like like Mike's Hard Lemonade, the big giant can. I don't do those big things anymore. It's 1 small glass of wine. I can allow myself a beer if I want, but I prefer the wine. Starbucks is a must. Yeah, I still do Starbucks, not rarely. I probably have like maybe 1 Starbucks every 6 weeks. My favorite is a grande-sized extra hot mocha. Not a mocha anymore, it's latte now. And gotta have 2 pumps of syrup and whipped cream after all. Everybody's gotta have an indulgence or 2 to punctuate the serious and difficult work of living well. I still agree with that sentiment, but I rarely do that. Again, I'll only have the mocha if I really need the hit to keep me awake driving. I occasionally enjoy this particular treat, the coffee, in the evening after work when I sit down to answer my periodic email, as I find the sugar caffeine boost to be a nice stimulation to my improved human response. No, and I don't do that anymore. I do all my email responses in the morning. It's part of that 1.5 hours between 4 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. activities that I do. I pretty much catch up on all my email by the start of the day. All my YouTube comments are caught up by the start of the day, and all of my meta comments. It's a lot easier since moving to America because the content doesn't have as many viewers anymore, so I can keep up. I'm 100% caught up on my email, for the most part. I'm 100% caught up on my YouTube comments and my social media comments every day, but because there's not as many. Email mostly. Okay, the next section. Action. The path of wildness. So this is the prescription. Here's the problem. Here's the fact. Here's my impression, and here's the action, the recommendation. First, and I mentioned the part about the health, because you got to get good physical, bodily shape to be able to live well. The path of wildness. Once healthy and in a position of understanding regarding the possible deeper fear and trial which makes life such a challenge to those who wish to live a meaningful life, as well as peace of mind when thinking of what apparently does not follow when life is through, you may then be ready to act in the direction of wisdom. Indeed, you may be prepared to rise to your full stature as a man or woman of reason, to apply this faculty towards the higher, perhaps seemingly more worthy acts of a well-lived life. This, then, is the time to step upon the path of wildness. And I'll repeat the poem. The path of wildness is easy to find. I don't need the book. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. Do not mistake the concepts of wilderness and wildness, which are related yet distinct terms. Wilderness is a place commonly regarded as devoid of most human influence. Stretches of desert in the American West, the far reaches of the Arctic and Antarctic, and most areas of the Earth's oceans are good examples of wilderness. Few such places on Earth remain utterly untouched by humanity, though many are nevertheless quite wild and capture the spirit and essence of regions where humans are more alien than familiar. Wildness, on the other hand, is the landscape of freedom. Wildness is less a place and more a region of uncertainty, risk, and very real danger. Wildness is a feature of wilderness, though it is entirely possible for a well-trained, outfitted, and prepared human to enter wilderness without venturing very far into wildness. However, those who step into wildness may do so without ever leaving their home. In fact, they may enter wildness from the comfort of their recliner or in the company of friends and family, though in practice, wildness is most easily accessed through wilderness, which is one of the reasons I have spent so much of my life alone in the outdoors. Well, I haven't spent that much time. Why should someone venture into wilderness? Why should someone venture into wildness? Why risk the danger, isolation, and fatigue of exploring alone, even among others, where chance or bad choices may leave you crippled or mortally wounded? There are several benefits which vary in degree, depending upon the character and interest of the explorer. Though one benefit is of special use to all, as it grants to the user a most useful skill and habit, and which, through training, can transform the timid, fearful, and meek into brave, spirited explorers. It happens. That quality is simply the character of courage in the face of the unknown, and a willingness to step boldly into seemingly dangerous regions of ignorance and uncertainty. There's the key. To confront our weakness and shortcomings in open field, where neither can hide and must instead be viewed for what they really are, and once surveyed, then likely dismissed as unworthy intimidators, whom we order to stand aside as we stride past into the deeper darkness and cold. Not pride nor unwholesome confidence shall replace these fears, as these too cannot fail to fall away during our struggle through the wild places. Indeed, most superfluous human traits are vulnerable to being lost along the way, as the close-cutting branches, vines, and thorns pull away everything which sticks out from our person and which is not essential to our truer character and inner strength. This is the singular gain and ambition of movement along the path of wildness, to wear away our excess, refine our better spirit, and help us develop and maintain the courage necessary to live well, as long as the light continues to shine in our eyes. I saw a note that might involve my daughter just fly past on the screen. She's in Japan now. I'll have to check after this is done. She's fine. I had set up a banky thingy for her to help her to give her money while she's in Japan. And it looks like